Good afternoon, everybody. And actually, I should say good morning for those joining us from the West Coast, and good evening for those joining us from Israel. I'm Galit Levy, the Chief Climate Solutions Prize Officer for JNF Canada, and I'm happy to welcome you on behalf of JNF, albeit I would have preferred it to be under different circumstances. JNF has brought you, since the horrific events of October 7th, some important webinars, security briefings, some meeting with families of hostages. And today we will be looking at the situation under a different lens, which is the one of the economy and finance situation in Israel from the perspective of the startup nation. The Climate Solutions Prize has been taking a leap with philanthropy to lead the premier Jewish stewardship for climate and literal tikkun olam, healing the world, helping Israel transform from the startup nation to the climate nation. It's great for Israel's economy, great for galvanizing the youth, and for Israel climate diplomacy, putting Israel on the map for something positive. In that spirit, we reached out to Sylvan Adams, who is the ambassador at large for Israel, to lead us today. Sylvan Adams has been a longtime friend of JNF in Israel. He was our 2016 Negev honoree and has since then made Aliyah. Sylvan is well known for his incredible achievements as a businessman at the helm of Iberville, but also for his immense philanthropy and vision. Combining his passion for cycling and the love of Israel, Sylvan is renowned for bringing the Giro d'Italia to Israel and Madonna for the Eurovision, thus putting Israel on the map for really key positive initiatives. Sylvan has donated some anchor gifts to academic institutions and hospitals, which has been transformative for Israel. And I'm honored to introduce our moderator of today's webinar. Sylvan, the floor is yours, but I'm reminded just quickly before I hand it over to Sylvan to just a few housekeeping points. The session is live, but it is being recorded, so it will be able to send it to after the recording is finalized. If you have any questions, there is a Q&A chat at the bottom of your screen, and you can obviously send your questions. And maybe when you do, you can write who you are or where you're from, so it makes the conversation a little more interesting. And Sylvan, now the floor is really yours.
Thank you, Galit. Hello, everybody. Good morning and good evening, as Galit said. We just experienced the worst day in Israel's history, and probably actually the worst month in Israel's history as well. And we've seen that, unfortunately, at a very high price, this has created an incredible opportunity for unity amongst Israelis, but also amongst all Jews around the world. The price was very high for our unity to be fostered. But here we are, and we are all. It's all hands on deck, as we've seen Israeli civil society respond. We've seen our military, of course, progress in a manner which makes each and every one of us proud, and yet we also have to take care of our economy, because Israel's strength. One of its great strengths, of course, is our fantastic economy that has vaulted us into one of the leading economies of the world, particularly with respect to investments in the high-tech space. So it's a privilege to be with you today with such eminent guests. And if I may, I will introduce each and every one of them. Avi Hasson, I know him well. He's the CEO of Startup Nation Central, a nonprofit organization that is funded by philanthropy, and it helps connect Israeli innovation to global challenges. Prior to his role as CEO, he was the chief scientist at Israel's Ministry of Economy and Industry, and also the founding chairman of the Israel Innovation Authority. He also played an active role in the private sector as general partner at Gemini Israel Funds, an early stage venture firm, Emerge, as a general partner. So Avi, pleasure to be with you today. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Silvan, Galit. It's good to see old friends, and thank you all for joining us, even though the circumstances, as mentioned, are dire. And indeed, we could talk a lot about the staggering magnitude of the horrific events that we all faced. But as you said, I think this war has many fronts, and today I think we'll focus more on the economy, which we should, because during the war and also at the day after, the economy is going to play a big role in the health of Israel, and the high tech is going to be, as always, a major contributor to Israel's economic health. Let me just say at the outset that coming into this war, the Israeli economy was actually in a very good state. If we look into some of our macro indicators, inflation, unemployment, debt to GDP ratio, and growth, Israel has really outperformed a lot of its peers in the past few years. And that is, of course, some good news, along with the absolute strength of the high-tech sector. I always say that the business plan of the country is basically the high-tech sector. 18% of our GDP is high-tech. That's about double the number of the US in terms of share in the GDP, and 3 times more than the EU. 30% of our income taxes are high-tech. High-tech matters to the health of the economy. And when we try to really give you a sense of what's happening on the ground in Israel, which is really the purpose of what we're doing right now, obviously the high-tech, like any other sector, is affected by the war. First and foremost, by the fact that we estimate 15% of the workforce have been enlisted to reserve duty. If we add also the impact on spouses of employees and so on, obviously, it's hard to maintain the same level of productivity, and there's impact on the output of the high-tech sector. Having said that, it's important to say that I was amazed by the resilience showed by tech entrepreneurs and companies. You mentioned, Silvan, it's all hands on deck situation, and we've really seen the people who have stayed to work putting double efforts and really making sure that there's little impact as possible on business continuity and customer delivery. And as we keep along, we see products are being delivered, deadlines are being met. And as we speak, deals are being made, code is being written, and customers are being served. We've seen the Israeli high-tech really shows its strength. A lot of the Israeli companies have sites outside of Israel. They've all developed very sophisticated business continuity plans that were actually put into test during COVID and also during the Russia-Ukraine war. Israeli companies had 20,000 employees working in Ukraine for Israeli companies, and a lot of the MOs that were developed during that Russian-Ukraine war are actually now put into place. So we've seen a lot of effort to make sure that Israel high-tech delivers no matter what. And it's a message that we've been putting across to investors, multinational companies, and the global business community, and the sector really responded in a big way to show that it has the ability to do that. I must say that, unfortunately, the past 20 years have given us a lot of experience in actually proving that fact. If we look into the Second Lebanon War, Protective Edge, and other rounds of conflict with Gaza, we've seen the Israeli economy really showing its resilience and recovering very quickly, both from a public market as well as from the real economy, showing really the resilience of the sector and of the economy as such. And that gives us hope when we look into the future. Another element that I want to stress here in this opening remark, and then of course we can touch it more in the Q&A, is the funding requirements. We must say that the tech sector comes into this war in a year or in a cycle that has been tough for tech companies worldwide and in Israel as such. We're in a high interest market that doesn't serve high-tech and startups companies very well. And 23 has been a rough year for startup companies and venture capital funds. So if we add the Israel-specific conflict elements, that puts a burden on startup companies. And we've seen several emergency vehicles being created. We've seen the Israel Innovation Authority responding quite swiftly, and I'm sure my good friend Dror will talk about that. That is needed because startup companies right now, which, for a startup entrepreneur, a bright day is when you have 6 months of runway. If you look into where we are today, there are practical implications that make it harder for companies to raise money, and there's a need to respond. At Startup Nation Central, we've been involved in a few of these initiatives, which I'll be happy to elaborate later. But if I need to sum up really where we are today, we see several burdens on the sector, mostly the fact that some of the workforce is not available and that short-term emergency funds or need in funding that needs to be done. But we've always also seen an amazing resilience by shifting internal resources, by making sure that business continuity is there to make sure, as I've said, that Israel High-Tech continues to deliver no matter what. And that gives me reasons to be optimistic about the day after. Let me just end by saying that we've also seen amazing support by multinational companies, by the global investor community, which have really stood by Israel, I think partially reflecting the importance of the Israeli ecosystem to their ongoing business, but also really standing on the right side in terms of moral and in terms of where the conflict is. And that support has been extremely important. Equally important is the support of global leaders. And I think that's another asset or source of power that we can have at our side when we think about how do we carry the economic activities during the wars and in the days and months to come. So happy to talk more later in the Q&A session. Looking forward to a good discussion. Thank you.
Good, thank you, Avi. Let me introduce, it segues very well because you introduced Dror. Dror Bin is the CEO of the Israel Innovation Authority, a role he's had since 2021. The IIA is the support arm of the Israeli government charged with fostering the development of the high-tech industry. Prior to that, he served as president and CEO of RAD, a privately held company that develops and manufactures specialized networking equipment. He's also held senior positions at Converse, where he was a venture partner at Viola Ventures, and served as chairman and member of several of the company's portfolio companies. Dror, happy to have you here. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Silvan. Thank you for having me. Good morning, good evening. I would like to share with you in the coming minutes a little bit about the perspective of the government and the Israeli Innovation Authority. I hope that you can see the slides that I'm sharing. So I think that Avi stressed, and for a very good reason, the fact that Israeli tech delivers no matter what. And he also spoke about the importance of the Israeli high-tech to the Israeli economy. And I would like to share with you a few numbers that really show how much the high-tech is the core engine of which is driving our economy. Well, in 2022, Israel invested more than 6% of its GDP in research and development. This is more than twice the average of the OECD countries. Almost 12% of the workforce is working in the high-tech sector. This is the highest number in the world. 18% of GDP is derived from the high-tech sector, again, number one in the world. And as Avi said, twice the US and 3 times the EU. 30% of the income tax and almost 50% of the export. All of that products and services developed and delivered by the Israeli high-tech. Just to show you how important it is to our economy, and maybe this is a good segue to say that the Israeli government is determined to do whatever is needed to help the high-tech cross the period of war and get out of it stronger than before, and I will elaborate on that in a minute. But it's not only that the Israeli high-tech is important to the local economy. I want to share with you a staggering number about the number of high-tech companies in Israel compared to other tech hubs in the world. We compare ourselves to either metropolitan areas or small countries like us in terms of size of population. You can see that in absolute numbers, Israel is ranked number 3, only after San Francisco and New York, and then in the number of high-tech companies which are located here locally. This is a phenomenal number. I believe you will agree with me. And I think it shows the contribution of Israel, yes, our small country, to the global economy and especially to the global tech community. As Avi rightfully said, we do feel that the global tech community is standing by Israel. We received lots of support letters and comments and publications condemning the horrific deeds of Hamas and supporting Israel, and also declaring that they will continue to do business with Israel, continue to invest in Israel, and even more important, continue to support our moral stand. This is highly important, and we are very thankful for that. On top of the number of high-tech companies, we do also have here something like 400 multinational companies. Basically, all the global brands are here. Most of them just entered the local ecosystem through acquisition of startups. Some of them just went in and opened their R&D facilities. And we also have around 500 investor organizations. And as you can see, it's a very, very vibrant ecosystem here in the country. So all of that is true for peaceful days, more peaceful days. But today we are at war, a war that we didn't want, but we have to fight. And obviously, the main effort of the high tech is to continue to deliver. I can tell you without, I didn't count, but it's hundreds of conversations that I had with CEOs and entrepreneurs during the last 5 weeks. All of them understand that they need to deliver on their R&D plans, on their commitments to customers. All Israeli startups from day one, from the get-go, understand that they operate in the global market. They are completely dependent on foreign customers and foreign investors. So they will do now anything which is needed in order to continue and deliver. You can see on the right-hand side a picture of a sign that was lit last week on NASDAQ in Times Square in support of Israel, that is having the same slogan. It's not easy. I want to be frank, CEOs and entrepreneurs are facing many challenges, challenges of many people that were called for army duty. We estimate it to be around 10 to 15% of the workforce of IT companies. Companies that we support in the north, in the south, that had to be evacuated, and they don't have access to their offices, to their labs, to their pilot sites. But on the other side, it's amazing to see how fast the ecosystem is reacting. This is, I guess, the essence of our local ecosystem resilience, how people are volunteering to help each other. To give you some examples, big manufacturing plants are hosting small manufacturing plants from the borders to make sure they continue, they're able to continue to manufacture. University labs which open up their labs for startups that cannot use their labs anymore, and so forth and so forth. It's really heartwarming to see the pace and the level of voluntarism which is happening in the last few weeks. Having said all of that, we do understand that many early stage companies were caught in the middle of a financing round. It's not a secret that we are in the middle of a macroeconomic slowdown in terms of the tech industry. It's not a secret that Israel suffered from political instability since the beginning of the year. So many Israeli startups were in the process of raising funds. And obviously, once the war broke, it is much more difficult for them to close these rounds. We are estimating that there are around a few hundreds of such companies. And this is why we declared very quickly after I guess already 3 weeks ago, about a bridge financing fund, emergency fund by the Innovation Authority, at the size of $100 million. We call it the fast track because companies that will submit to get our investment will get very fast response within 4 weeks. This fund requires also matching from the private sector, which we estimate to be around $100 to $150 million. So in the next 3 months, hundreds of early stage startups are going to get around $250 million. And the idea is to prolong their runway from about 3 months in average, and I will explain in a moment why, to more than 1 year. We want to secure this asset of a startup nation and make sure that no good company goes under because lack of funding due to the war. What is the profile of the companies we are looking to support? We are talking about early stage companies, short runways, only companies with less than 6 months of burn rate. They should have disruptive technologies, technological and business assets. They have to be best in class. It's not like we are supporting mediocre companies or anything like that. We want to support the best that the local ecosystem can offer. We are not talking about companies that only started out with an idea or something. We want to see real assets. And we are also not talking about companies which are already in the growth phase. For them, there are other solutions. We are looking for companies that are still in the development phase and in the early sales phase. You can ask yourself what type of companies we can expect to see in this fund. Well, by coincidence, just last week, Time Magazine published a list of 200 inventions that are going to change the world. 8 out of them are Israeli companies. You can see the names on the right-hand side. 6 out of them are companies that the Israeli Innovation Authority invested on in the early stages. So only such companies with disruptive technology, with great potential economical potential, those are the companies that we will invest in. And basically what I'm saying, since this fund is also requiring matching, it means that in the next 3 months, there are going to be hundreds of amazing companies with disruptive innovation, which are going to be looking for private investments from their current investors, from their new investors, even philanthropic money. So if any of you is looking for business opportunity and or looking to support the State of Israel, this is a good opportunity for you to do so by investing and by matching the money that we are going to invest. So all of that is only about business continuity. I want to say a few words about what's going to happen also after the war. I think that all of the panel members here have been around for managing things through many crises. Whether global economical crises, Corona, previous rounds of war with Gaza, with Lebanon. And the common denominator of all these crises were that Israeli high-tech only got stronger after. And this is what we believe will happen also after this war. It's not something that we wait and see to happen. It's something that we are taking actions in order to make it happen. And we are already working on plans and programs that we will launch during the war and immediately after the war to make sure that in the right partnership between the government and the industry, we will indeed go out of this situation stronger than before. I would like to conclude my speech with something that I'm being asked many times about when I take part in panels, virtually or physically. They ask me, what is the secret of a startup nation? And my answer is that, as Pluto said 2,000 years ago or more, necessity is the mother of all inventions. And I think that for the last 75 years, the State of Israel faced many necessities, many challenges, security challenges, the fact that we are in an area which does not have many natural resources and so forth. And those necessities created Startup Nation. And for me, this war creates many new necessities. I can tell you that already I see things happening in the ecosystem that in order to solve the challenges of this war very quickly in a very disruptive way. And I'm sure that great ventures will be created out of this war as well. So thank you. And I hope that the war will end soon so we can go back to business.
Thank you, Dror. By the way, I would add one more element that is part of our secret sauce. I would say Jewish mothers. That also helps to create ambitious, smart, forward-thinking, entrepreneurial people, and that is a part of our secret strength. Thank you, Dror. The next speaker will be Chemi Peres. Chemi is the co-founder and managing general partner of Pitango, Israel's largest venture capital fund. Pitango has invested in some 230 global high-tech companies, including Graphcore, eToro, Riskified, Tabula, and Via. With over $2.3 billion in committed capital. Chemi also serves as the chairman of the executive committee of the Peres Center for Peace and Innovation, established in 1996 by his late father, Israel's 8th Prime Minister and 9th President, Shimon Peres, known very well to everyone, I'm sure. So, Chemi, it's over to you.
Thank you so much, Silvan. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are on the globe. First, I want to thank Startup Nation Central for setting up this webinar together with JNF, and thank you, Dror, Avi, Galit, and Silvan for moderation and kind introduction, and for your words of wisdom. I'll try to add a little bit more, try not to repeat what you already said. But before I start, I want to make two comments. First and foremost, one of the individuals that inspired me over the last 30 years of investments, Ed Melavsky, was one of the founding fathers of the Israeli high-tech sector. Ed was the first CEO of the Bird Foundation and was a co-founder of the first fund, Gemini, which Avi was a partner, and I had the pleasure of knowing him and the team and investing together for many, many years. Unfortunately, he passed away, and I did not know. I just discovered after the funeral that took place yesterday that dear Ed passed away. So he was an inspiration, source of inspiration, great sense of humor, and huge belief in the Israeli genius and in the high-tech sector. So that's number one. Number two, I was very devastated to see what happened in Canada to Hither Reisman, the Indigo store, the demonstration of anti-Semitism. And I wanna send her a big hug and support from Israel. So that just before we start. With regards to October 7th, the barbaric, horrific attack of Hamas to Israel, that has been the worst day that Israel experienced since its inception 75 years ago, rightly said by Silvan. We live in a world that is going through a transformation into a world that is facing global threats, that in order to mitigate those global threats, we have to do two things. Number one is we have to demonstrate solidarity among nations and within nations. And we have to deal with science and technology to find solutions to all the things that we're going to encounter. Two things that are dear to my heart, two values that I cherish. And since the high-tech sector started in the late 80s, the beginning of the 90s, we went through a series of threats and challenges. Some of them were local, some of them were global. But in the recent years, we've seen really some significant global threats and challenges. One of them, of course, was the corona The second one identified is the climate change, or maybe the first identified, and Corona is part of it. And another one, of course, is what we've seen with global terrorism. Terrorism is not local. We've seen it in New York in September 11. We saw it in Syria and Iraq with ISIS. We saw it with Hamas. We see it with the Houthis in Yemen and many other countries around the world. This is a global threat that needs to be addressed together and needs to be eliminated. The Israeli society and the high-tech sector responded immediately on the spot on October 7th, took action. And as said here, throughout the years, whenever we faced a crisis or a challenge, we always delivered. We never missed bringing a product or a service to customers or to fruition. And the same is happening right now. Business continuity is flawless. People are covering up for each other. Those who are in reserve are covered by others. We find solutions for everything, and we deliver no matter what. We are actually entering the fourth decade of the Israeli high-tech ecosystem. We're stronger than ever before. We're much more experienced, much more trained. We have great companies in Israel. We are driving our economy forward. Our economy allows us to have a very strong military power, and that military power and strength allows us to achieve the ultimate goal of having peace. But let me tell you that following the events of October 7, there are two things are going to happen. Number one, Israel is going to be safer than ever before. We're not going to contain any challenge, any threat on our borders, inside or outside. Zero tolerance, unproportionate response. What happened on October 7th will never happen again. We said it 50 years ago in Yom Kippur War. We said it after the Holocaust. We experienced it now at home, and it's not going to happen anymore in the future. So Israel is going to be the safest place on earth. That's number one. Number two, Israel is going to have the best decade, or the next couple of decades are going to be the best decades of the Israeli high-tech ecosystem. We've been training for 30 years. We learn how to leverage the internet. We learn how to gather data and develop algorithms. And now we have very powerful tools that are going to augment our capabilities. First and foremost is artificial intelligence, which is on our side, allows us to do much more in spite of our small size in terms of number of people, and you saw the numbers that Dror presented. And quantum computing is another powerful tool that is ahead of us. Israel will be able to do much more than we ever did before. In our first decade, we learned how to develop products for global enterprises. We couldn't carry them into the market. In the second decade, we started to go to markets. On the third decade, we learned how to raise money, build organizations, and build unicorns. And now we are on prime time, ready to build the first Israeli companies that will become Fortune 500 companies in the next 10, 20 years. So we are now at a point where there is only one deficiency, which is a combination of what happened in Israel, but also coupled with the fact that the world is going through a recession, through an inflation of scarcity, when interest rates are high. When interest rates are high, people shy away from investing in non-liquid assets, and they try to generate safely nice returns in the bank. But that is going to be over sometime, and people will come back to invest in the brain power, and we are there. All we need is a bridge, mostly for the early stage companies. So whether you believe in the opportunity, you can invest. And if you are still afraid of the opportunity, but you want to support Israel, that's the time to step in. In addition to what the government is doing with its amazing initiative, and I must say, Dror, that this institution you are heading that was initiated by Avi, are doing an amazing job identifying exactly what the industry needs. We don't need much. We just need some energy, in terms of capital, to go through the next few months, and then we're off to the stars. So it's an opportune time to support Israel, and it is an opportune time to invest. And in addition to what the government is doing, there are a lot of initiatives within the Israeli high-tech ecosystem, such as SafeDome and Iron Nation and other platforms. And having the private sector and the government working shoulder to shoulder and financing only the great companies that have a great opportunity to be successful going forward are ensuring that either supporting or investing will be beneficiary to those who participate. And let me finish by saying that at this time, I always compare it to the Olympic Games. And I'm not sure that Silvan, knowing that he's a competitive athlete, will agree, but participation is more important than winning medals. We need you to support, we need you to step in, we are stepping in, and together we'll make Israel stronger than ever, more successful and more flourishing, and that will be our response to what happened in October 7th. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chemi, for your optimistic words, which I happen to share. I think that we are poised for the next decade to be Israel's decade. I will tell you that one thing that I always found bothersome about Israeli high tech is this notion that once entrepreneurs created a unicorn, that they were always looking for an exit. And you know, wealth is created by holding on. And I was told, oh, you know, don't worry about it. We'll invent something else. And it doesn't really work that way, because it's very rare the entrepreneur who has more than one great success in his career. So I'm encouraged to hear you say that we would be building Fortune 500 companies. Again, I'm reminded by the path of Facebook, founded by Mark Zuckerberg. And he was offered very early on, I think $5 billion by Google to buy his company, and he just said no, and look where he is today. And so I think that wealth is built by holding on. I'm encouraged to hear you say that we will build Fortune 500 companies. Can you expound on that a little bit? Why you think we will transition from entrepreneurs looking for an exit as opposed to building companies?
Thank you so much, Silvan. I think that the decade between 2012 to 2021 allowed us really to raise huge amounts of money that we never had an opportunity to. We sold our companies because we had no choice. In the 90s, from the 90s to 2000, we did not have, people did not want to invest in Israel, and companies could not really grow. So they had to focus on technology and sell it to other global companies that had an operation in Israel or were interested in working with Israel. In the second decade that started between 2000 and 2010, we had again a crisis. First of all, the global financial crunch and the subprime in 2007, 2008 that followed the crisis in 2000 of the dot-com. So while we went to markets, we were still unable to grow the business, and we did not have enough information. You have to remember that Israel is an island, and the evolution of the internet, the growth of data really connected us to the world. Israel is no longer an island. Israel is now like a ship that can sail the ocean like others. And I always believe that Israelis are not only great developers, they are great executives, they are fighters, they are winners, they are long-term thinkers, they are committed. And I think that the opportunity that was given to all of us by the low interest rate from 2012 to 2021 allowed Israel to raise money and carry on. They skipped on exits. They did not sell their companies. They actually preferred to go public and raise additional money. They preferred to become buyers. They prefer to gain more experience, recruit more management teams. And between 2012 to 2021, we actually built more than 100 companies that achieved a market valuation of over $1 billion. Today, we have role models in the stock markets. We have companies like Palo Alto Networks, which already worth $75 billion. We have Mobileye that after the acquisition went on its own to become a $35 billion. We have SolarEdge, we have Monday, we have tens of companies traded on the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ, which already have valuations of many billions of dollars. And the competition now and the role models now are those who made it, those who really build very large companies. They are becoming the role model in Israel. So we turn the culture from an exit culture to we deliver no matter what, and we grow. And I can tell you that my father wrote a book which is called No Room for Small Dreams. I discovered it became the motto of the Israeli high-tech industry. And a lot of CEOs that I meet with, when I talk to them, they tell me, we're dreaming big. There is no room for small dreams. We can grow companies out of Israel. We have the data, we have the talent, we have the capability. Markets are becoming more open to us, especially with the Abraham Accords. We can go to markets that we never went before. We can scale up faster. And that is exactly what Israel is focused on, scaling up. And when I told some of our CEOs, for me, you earn the ticket for the Fortune 500, that drives their motivation and that inspires them to really think long-term and build real companies. This is where Israel is right now.
Again, I agree. This is how we will build wealth, and how Israel will remain a powerhouse. And so I hope that entrepreneurs are listening and are inspired by your father's big dreams, and continue in this vein, because I think this is the way. Pivoting back to the war, if I may ask Avi, Startup Nation Central is a tremendous resource to connect the startup community to a very large worldwide ecosystem. Specifically now, in this time of crisis, where we have, as was mentioned, about 15% of high-tech workers have been called up either as soldiers or in the reserves, and or have been displaced from the borders and have had their lives disrupted. What is Startup Nation Central doing right now during this time of war to support our high-tech ecosystem?
So thank you for the question, Sylvan. Well, I think it was pretty obvious that life has changed on October 7th, and having been year out year, what we do is to serve the high-tech economy and ecosystem, but the needs changed. So immediately we have over 100 employees in Tel Aviv, and basically what we tried to see is how can we mitigate some of the challenges that were presented during this session. To that purpose, our main initiative was the creation of something we call the Central Hub, which was basically a resource center and a service center to all the startups to try to identify their needs and really help them connect to funding opportunities, to professional support, to advisory services, to everything that really represents their needs. So overnight, a few dozens of our employees have actually started manning those battle positions, if you'd like. We've already served over 400 startups that have applied to us. So startup can come to us really and identify their specific needs. They're assigned with case managers, and that need could be funding. Well, typically it's first and foremost funding. And there, what we try is really to connect them to some of the vehicles mentioned by Chemi, Iron Nation, Safe Dome, to make accessible to them the programs of the government to really help them in a very practical but also personal way to find what's the right source of funding. We proactively approached a few dozens of global investors really trying to understand what are their needs and how can we make those matchmaking in a scalable way. In addition to that, we've also created, and I also saw that in the Q&A, so I'm really happy about that. We try to connect, and we already have hundreds of professional advisors, really people from the global community, investment community, and tech community, which said, how can we help? We want to help. We want to proactively help. This could be very senior people who have either the connections or the access to funding or good advice about go-to-market, marketing, or any other subject. We've created a pool of such advisors. And again, we're making active matchmaking to companies. And in a similar way, also to people who might be not as senior, but can offer practical help from QA to graphical design, from marketing to programming. And again, we're connected to multiple initiatives. So everything that I've said is actually available through our website. Companies can go there. You can go there, try to look to our central hub. So whether you want to offer your professional advice, help, support, or funding, or you're a company, which typically is what we do, we've made that happen. And this has been a very active resource. The second thing actually was already shown by Dror. So thank you for that, Dror. Really that campaign that the no matter what campaign, that is not just about sending out that message. It also has, again, a very practical resources for companies from FAQ, because, Israeli companies are very good in developing technologies and selling it worldwide and growing companies, as Chemi said. They're not all as accustomed to talk about the macro challenges, show that data, as Dror and Chemi are so good in doing that. So we've provided a kit with a lot of resources, from economic data talking about past resources, FAQs, a lot of things that companies are using now day in, day out to address the concerns that they hear from their customers, from the investors. And again, all this is available at our website and also in a dedicated website called No Matter What for the needs of the startups. So many more initiatives, but I would say that these are the main two, really trying to help the Israeli startups in their immediate needs, but also thinking about the days and months to come. This in addition to something which is not unique to Startup Nation Central. We've all been involved in amazing initiatives, not just to help the sector, but to really bring the power of the sector to serve national needs. And as mentioned, by Chemi and Dror, there's been amazing initiatives of companies, but also individual people putting their knowledge and technology savvy from bringing information about the hostages and about the people abducted to help other sectors of the economy manage their day-to-day by using technology, to try to tackle some of the cybersecurity threats that the country has been facing right now, health need, and so on. And again, Startup Nation Central have been doing a lot of that. But I must say that the mobilization and solidarity that we've seen from the entire civil society have been an amazing source of strength for the nation. It's not the first time we've seen that. We just recently, I think COVID was another all hands on deck situation. And as mentioned by the previous sectors, the waves of innovation that have been created that, if I just look, by the way, hasn't mentioned yet, but the amazing innovation brought by our defense industries, which unfortunately is now put into test, in real combat, is not just about defending our soldiers. It also will have derivatives and spillover effects that will enable, next waves of innovation in health, in medical devices, in climate technologies, in agriculture technologies, and so on. So I'm sure we'll see a lot of that coming into fruition in the months to come.
Thank you, Avi. I think Israel is a unique country, unique in the world in terms of the spirit of volunteerism and people pitching in a time of great need, such as today. Again, we are unified. This terrible crisis has brought us closer together, closer than ever, and it's breathtaking to see. And your program of mentoring that you've put into place, Avi. I think it's remarkable from seeing what the Jewish world is contributing, but even the non-Jewish world that supports us, that has common interest with us, and it's remarkable to see this spirit of volunteerism, and as you said, all hands on deck. Dror, you mentioned the criteria that you use in terms of trying to provide a relatively small amount of seed money to sustain these entrepreneurial companies, these startups that really do need, especially at this critical moment of crisis, both in the high-tech financing world in general, as was mentioned, but specifically now in a time of war. How do you rank them? You know, you will get applications from a variety of companies. Do you have a team? Do you look at these, you know, from the criteria that you mentioned, that you know have barriers to entry or real innovation, or you know addressing real needs in the marketplace? How do you rank these ventures that you choose to back?
Thank you, Sylvan. Well, as I mentioned at the beginning, we invest about $500 million every year in local ventures. And always the things that we are looking for are three sets of criteria. It's first of all, the level of the technology disruptiveness or the disruptive innovation the company is bringing, and the level of risk. The higher the risk, the better for us, because we believe that we should invest the government money in places where the private sector is underinvesting, because this is, at the end of the day, the future of the tech industry. So this is one set of criteria. The second one is the economical potential. We want to see things which are big, not addressing niche markets, but rather global markets which are significant. And the third one criteria is the quality of the team. Is this a team that can deliver? Are we putting our money in the right place? So just to give you the notion, we get something like 3,000 submissions every year. We take this 3,000 submissions through a very thorough due diligence process. We have independent investment committees that are deciding in which to invest. So it's a very big machinery that we have that knows how to evaluate companies in various stages, by the way. We have programs that work with entrepreneurs that only come up with an idea and just want to develop it. We know how to invest in pre-seed and seed phase. We know how to invest in early revenues phase and growth phase, and even in large companies that do innovative projects. So this is the way we work. For this emergency fund, the Fast Track Fund, we added another criteria, which is the below 6 months of runway, because we want to focus our efforts on those companies that still answer all the other criteria that I've mentioned, but do not have enough money to go through the war. We want to protect them because they are a great asset of Startup Nation, and this is why we came up with this additional criteria. I want also to say that we also had the challenges of business continuity, because we also have employees which are recruited, and we have people which are at home with their small kids, etc. But we are fully operational. So all the programs, all the tracks of investment of the Innovation Authority are open, and any company in Israel can submit and get answers as in peaceful days. Having said all of that around the early stage companies, I totally agree with Chemi's remarks about scale-up companies and growth companies. I can testify also from our angle that this is indeed the process. We have many tens, above 100 of very promising big startups or big companies, large companies that are on their way to become really market leaders. And I'm sure that this process will continue exactly as Chemi described. Maybe another flavor I would like to add to this, especially in these hard days of conflict between Jews and Arabs in the country. And I go back to your comment about the Jewish mother. We are conducting an effort to include also the Arab society in the high tech. You know that about 1/5 of the Israel population is the Arabs. And they are today under participating in the high tech, both on in being employed in high tech companies as well as being entrepreneurs. And we have embarked last year on a government program of including the Arab society in the high tech. We are opening innovation centers in Arab cities across the country to make sure that opportunities are given also to young women and men, Arab men and Arab women, to open their startups, to be connected to the investors community, to be investors connected to the knowledge centers in the academia, to get funds from us to grow their business, and as well to be employed in high-tech companies in Tel Aviv that may open maybe offices also in those Arab cities. So despite this very hard time of conflict, I want to stress out maybe a point of hope that we still plan to invest heavily in the Arab society. I can tell you that we got a lot of support from all the men and women that are active in those innovation centers across the country, also condemning the acts of barbarism that we saw on October 7th. So I hope that there is also hope to our region in that regards.
Yeah. Do you take? Does the government take equity stakes in these companies when you are supporting them financially?
No, and that's the nice point about it. We give something that we call conditional grant, which means that if the project is successful, it will pay royalties out of revenues up to the level of the grant. And if the project fails, then our money is gone, meaning that we take all the risk. And this is, I believe, how it should be. It's government money that goes only to very disruptive, very risky projects. Some of them succeed, some of them fail, and that's okay from our point of view.
The needs, of course, at the moment are great. We have hundreds of thousands of citizens who have moved away from border communities, both in the south and in the north. We have 300,000 to 400,000 reserve soldiers called up or actively serving. So the needs are great. How do you justify using precious government money, especially at this time of crisis, to compete with the needs of these people who have been displaced and who are really have had their lives turned upside down? How do you justify allocating precious capital at this time to high-tech companies?
Well, you remember when I started, I said that the Israeli government is determined to do whatever it takes to keep the Israeli high-tech growing. And I said it's not only my personal view. This is the point of view of the government, the finance ministry. This emergency fund that we have launched, actually we launched it at the beginning with only $25 million. This is a budget that I took from the Innovation Authority budget. Immediately after the war, I didn't want to wait for anybody, but then the Ministry of Finance decided to add another $75 million, shifting priorities from earlier decisions of budget making. So I believe that, and I know that all the decision makers in the government understand that the high-tech is the core of Israeli economy. The strength of the Israeli economy is part of our national security. And people understand that we need to continue to invest in our high-tech sector in war times, in peace times. The high-tech is changing. The future is not only software-based companies, which Israel is very successful and very well known for, companies that do cybersecurity, fintech, gaming, enterprise software, whatever. The future includes also many new inventions with tangible attributes. Galit mentioned in the beginning climate tech. There are hundreds of startups that are already developing amazing climate tech solutions in Israel. This is the future. This is where we have to invest to secure our future.
I'm gonna ask a question to all of you about our communications and our position, our standing in the world, because we do these amazing things where you just mentioned, Dror, about how we're a force for good in terms of attacking the world's climate problems. And we've produced so many innovations that have benefited the world. Coming back to COVID, we were the worldwide lab, really, for COVID, because we had such unique properties in the country. So again, my experience is that we have a tremendous support and love from around the world. However, we also operate in our own echo chambers, and we're seeing from research and demographic analysis that somehow we are losing the younger cohort. We're losing support around the world, who are quick to criticize, who are getting their news. They don't follow traditional news media. I guess they watch TikTok and get their news that way. But we're increasingly seeing that we live in echo chambers. What can we do? What can the high-tech sector, with our brain power and our understanding of how to attack serious problems, what can we do to turn the tide in communicating better messages, so that people understand, especially younger people, understand the barbarism that took place, that this is a war between civilization and really and savagery, and it's a war that the rest of the world had better hope Israel wins, because after they're done with us, if we are not successful, well, they'll be coming after others. I see queers for Palestine. This is a great demonstration. They wouldn't last 30 seconds in Gaza, those people. And how do we communicate to those people? How can we do a better job? And I'm gonna kick it off to Chemi to try that one out.
Thank you so much. First of all, I think this event of October 7th was a wake-up call for all of us. We learned that when Israel is caught on guard, and is caught or at least perceived to be weak, anti-Semitism rises all over the world. And when anti-Semitism rises all over the world, Jewish people suffer, and it affects also Israel, because we are at risk of doing business around the world. I think what we've seen from the very beginning of this event is young men and women from the high-tech sector, from different units in the defense forces and from the government, joining forces immediately and building now the right answer to deal with our image in the world, and to fight the war which is greater than the war that we see in the physical world, and we cannot afford to lose it. So the effort is tremendous. There was a time where we said, we in Israel, we do the things that we need to do in Israel, and the Jewish people take care of anti-Semitism. I think now it's for the first time the Israeli people and the Jewish people are coming together as an army to fight this war, and this is for the first time. We're leveraging technologies, we're leveraging what companies do. We understand networks, we understand data, we understand advertisement, and the level of activities on the creativity side, as well as on addressing fake news and fake data, is something that we fight. And I think that it will take a long time. We will need to raise a lot of money, but I believe it's a war that it is for us to win. We just need to get our act together and not leave this frontier undealt with. And I think October 7 was a wake-up call for all of us. Now I see a lot of activities, I see a lot of headquarters. As a matter of fact, I visited today in Tel Aviv a group that started, young people, 25 years old, build a sort of a headquarter. They have thousands of people already volunteer, creating content, creating networks, creating applications, leveraging technologies, and starting to fight. It will take a long time. We may not win the war at the beginning, but for sure we have to win some of the battles. One of them was the hospital in Gaza that was hit by Palestinians. The world reaction, of course, was immediately, it's Israel. But in a matter of few hours...
First of all, it wasn't the hospital that was hit. It was the parking lot next to the hospital.
It
Yes.
was. It
They
was
got
the
every
parking
part of
lot.
this. Every part of the story they got wrong.
Exactly, and the bodies that they count were not exactly the bodies that were counted, and the number of children they said that were killed were not the number of kids. But we won this battle because we managed to demonstrate and to prove to the world that it was not Israel, it was the Palestinian, and it was an accident that happened to them. So we are winning small battles like this, but the challenge is to win the big war. And the big war today is done on social media, on TikTok, on other networks. And I can tell you from what I see, and I move around, I see lots of people organized in teams. And I think the challenge for us will be to coordinate everything, to make it a unified effort, to build a global network around the world of Jews, Israelis, business people, everyone who is out there, share information, create content, and give us the tools to fight this war. We are not allowed to lose this war. We have a moral war. We are the right side, we're the just side. And the war that we are fighting right now is a war between the democratic free world and the terrorism, which is becoming a global phenomena. I think a lot of leaders do understand it, but there's a lot of work to do. But I'm very optimistic because I see that it was a wake-up call, and more people are dealing with it, and they are aiming for the long run.
Sylvan, if
On
I
this,
may...
yes, I have to say I'm a little bit less optimistic than Chemi, in the sense that, you know, we see, for example, they're telling us 11,000 Gazans have been killed. Who's telling us this information? The Gaza Ministry of Health. What a beautiful name, which is actually Hamas. I don't recall ISIS giving us statistics on casualties when the battle for Mosul was taking place. So again, Avi, can you speak to this? How can we correct the narrative? Again, 11,000 was pulled out of the air. I haven't seen a proper rebuttal of this figure by any spokesperson for Israel, including our prime minister. I saw he was on Face the Nation this week, and nobody is giving a counter to this blanket statement that Israel has killed 11,000 without specifying. Are they terrorists that we killed? Are they innocent civilians? We know that that Israeli soldiers are lining the north-south corridor to allow safe passage to the civilians in Gaza, and we are taking fire for that. And I just don't see us winning this. I'm sorry, Chemi, I'm not as optimistic as you. I don't see us even getting started to correct the message. Avi, maybe you'll make me believe.
I think I will, and it's truly what I believe, and I'll tell you why. Because I think, first of all, we live in a world where facts, don't matter a lot in general, and we have to understand that. But to me, you have to look in the bigger picture, and in the bigger picture, that's why I'm optimistic. Because from my personal experience, Sylvan, I saw now no better diplomacy than innovation diplomacy. And I think if Israel is now portrayed as the source and origins to everything that is bad in this world, as a country which creates, mayhem, conflict, and problems, I think there's a narrative which is much more speaks to the truth, where Israeli innovators are actually solving a lot of the world's problem. And I think that's the story we need to tell. And I think that's how you reach the younger generation, which cares more about climate change, actually, than it cares about this conflict. And if you talk about that, and if you bring Israel only, in the back door, because you first speak about the problem, and then you speak about the solutions to the problem, and then, oh, by the way, Israel plays a major role in solving those problems. And the same goes to the problems of food safety in the world, and the same goes to some of our health challenges. This is where you win the war. And from personal experience, when you speak to the young Bahrainis and Moroccans and Emiratis and Saudis, and more difficult to speak, but I'm telling you, a lot of the young people in Iran today, this is the language they want to hear. These are the values they want to support. And while there are a lot of challenges in making this a reality, I think innovation and collaboration are really synonyms of the same world. And I think if we bring the power of Israeli innovation, of its ecosystem, to impact the diplomacy and to touch the younger generation, that's where we stand a chance. Now, it takes a long time to achieve that. It's a long road. But the fact that the Israeli ecosystem has always been tightly coupled with the global value chain gives us a lot of hope to think, how can we together collectively solve the world's problem? How can we collectively create mutual prosperity? And I think that's a narrative that brought the Abraham Accord countries, to the table. And that's the narrative which is going to carry us the day after. And make no mistake, do we have challenges? And I saw there was a question about that. Are we having challenges right now with the Abraham Accords? Sure we do. But I can tell you from personal conversations that the motivations are there. And in the day after, the people in those countries understand on which side of the history they want to be, and they want to build better societies and economies for their own countries. And they understand how much knowledge and innovation play a role in that, and they understand how much Israel can be a contributor to their own prosperity. So I think that's a longer journey. It's not an easy task, but that's the only way that we can together prevail. And again, as Chemi said, it's not Israel versus the Arab. It's the people with those values within Israel, with the people with those values worldwide. And these are the people we need to reach out to. And from my experience, there's no better tool in our toolkit than innovation and technology to help us win this war.
So maybe, and now I'm going to challenge Dror to, as somebody who works for the government, maybe our problem
I'm just going to interject and say this is maybe the last question, because it is 20 minutes over. And although, we have a great audience here who's sticking with us, they probably maybe want to also go to their next, who knows, Zoom or meeting or whatnot. Go ahead, Selman.
So I'm going to challenge the government. Maybe the problem is, we do all of these great things, and we are leaders in so many fields that is helping to improve the world. Maybe our problem is a branding problem, because again, all of this positivity can be destroyed in just a few images of war. So maybe what we're lacking from the government perspective is a way to sort of brand brand Israel as a force for good in the world.
Well, I totally agree with what Chemi and Avi said about the ways we can go forward with this issue, but I must say that I'm also less optimistic. I don't know what is the answer to the problem, but I can say a few things. I think that Israel should continue, first of all, to keep its moral standards, because we know who we are, we know how we fight, we know what is the good that we bring to the world. And eventually, I believe that this good will win over evil. So, we should not be distracted by the things that were done to us. We should fight and keep our standards, not because of our image in the world, because this is who we are. This is one thing. The second thing I can say is that maybe for the first time, Israeli people and Israeli government understand that this is a war, the media war, that we neglected, and we need to do things differently in the future. I cannot say that we know what we should do, but I know that we should do. We know that we should do it. And as always, when Israel understands that it should do something, it does it. The country finds the way to do it. So this is the second thing I can say. The third thing, which makes me not optimistic, is I believe that our quote unquote problem is much wider. It's a matter of politics in the world. I think that the world is going through great change. Truth is not truth anymore. You don't know who to believe. You are drawn to the extremists. And Israel has become a political issue between those who have these standards and those that have those standards. It was shocking for me, talking about climate, to see Greta Thunberg supporting Hamas and condemning Israel. So intelligent young lady that has become an icon to climate change and so forth cannot invest, 30 minutes to study, to learn, to understand the conflict and become more balanced than she is. So this is really a matter for pessimism. And I believe that as long as the world is going through such a change and finding a new balance, political balance, probably Israel will remain something which is around conflict, regardless of what we do. This is my personal opinion, not as a government official. But again, I think that if we keep on doing the good things that we are doing and keeping our moral standards and understanding that we need to fight this war, I think things will be different in the future.
So I'm going to conclude that little segment by saying I'm challenging the three of you to put Israeli brain power to work to figure out how to better communicate our messages. Because I feel you mentioned Greta Thunberg. If we lose somebody like her, she has such a following. We're losing. And so on a note of optimism, when we've had to meet challenges, we always have. We are winners. When we need to win, we win. So I'm challenging the three of you in conclusion to figure out a better way to communicate our message and our values as good contributors, solid citizens in this planet.
Challenge taken.
Great. Okay.
All right. Well, Sylvan, thank you for moderating this really riveting session. And thank you to all of our panelists, Chami Perez, Dror Bin, Avi Hasson. You were really so interesting. And I'm unfortunately, we have to close this webinar, but it's been quite interesting. And I hope we will meet again on more positive situation, and looking forward to more innovation, Israel, really booming economy, and more as a point of logistic, we will be sending the recording to all those who participated with more material about the different vehicles where people can actually, because I see in the chat a lot of questions, how can we support? So we'll be sending information about the Save Dome Iron Nation, the Climate Emergency Fund, and you will be able to support these through these vehicles, Israel's economy and technology and innovation. So thank you, everybody, on behalf of JNF and the Climate Solutions Prize. We're really happy that you joined us, and wishing you good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Thank you again.
Thank you.